I grew up just outside of Houston with my parents and two older brothers, Stephen and Danny. Those guys were more than my big brothers. They were my best friends. Danny as a child, and Stephen as adults. Stephen was 4 years older than me, and we didn't have a whole lot in common growing up. Danny and I were really into cartoons. Stephen was really into Star Trek. I spent a large portion of my childhood laying on the floor in a quivering heap, the victim of a Vulcan death grip. Then when Stephen was in junior high, he wrote a play based on the comic strip Broomhilda. Danny and I were his cast, the patio his stage, and Mom and Dad the audience and curtain crew. Stephen usually got his way. Bet you can guess why. But most of all, Stephen loved people and would do anything for them. Stephen spent most of his teenage years carrying his best friend Donna around on his back. She had cerebral palsy, and he was bound and determined that she wasn't missing out on a thing. Stephen was a perfect combination of Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. If you asked him what 1 + 1 was, he always answered, "That depends on what you define one to be." Yet he was the life of the party and the heart of our family. I didn't really know how much Stephen meant to me until he left home. That's when we became partners in crime. When Stephen was around, I rarely stopped laughing. As young adults, we were always up to something, whether it was water skiing on New Year's Eve in 40-degree weather, or building my grandmother a 17-foot-tall greenhouse that she didn't really want. It was always Stephen's idea. He even convinced me to go to Disneyland with him and his friends. Trust me, Disneyland is not the happiest place on earth when you're sharing a room with three 30-something-year-old men. One thing about Stephen that drove us the most crazy was that his time schedule wasn't the same as the rest of the world's. If we were having a family dinner at 4, we told Steve 2. He might make it by dessert, but it was doubtful. As it turns out, that idiosyncrasy proved to be the last laugh we ever had with Steve. You see, Stephen died on New Year's Eve of 2002, and his service was on January 3rd. Unfortunately, the doctor didn't get the death certificate signed, so the funeral home didn't get the body cremated. We always said Stephen would be late to his own funeral, and he was. He would have loved it.